What's its name?
Her name's Roxy.
She's going to be the star of the show.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim, are you ready?
Are you able to hear us at all, Cam? Oh, there we go.
Can choose a logo.
Did you do that, Ashley, or did Jonathan do that? I like that.
Cool.
Did Ken send you his presentation?
Hello.
Hi, Ken.
Hey.
Hi.
There's always something new. We didn't have to do that last night. Seemed to finally work.
Janice, is that banner beneath something you did, or did Jonathan do that?
Which banner are you talking about, Frank?
The banner on the bottom that shows her name, and Ashley's got one too.
It's called a third something. If you click on the Hangout toolbox on the left of your screen, you can set it up.
Okay, thanks.
Is everybody getting a lot of feedback, or is it just me?
I hear a lot of
Yeah, I'm
feedback.
getting some.
Alright, can we hear you now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you. There's a bit of an echo, but I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Still can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I've got mic sound coming here.
Okay, so keep talking, John. Does that work?
Can you hear me? I am
Yes,
getting.
I hear you.
No, that's what she said.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that's good.
Now I can't hear you all, but let's get this thing started and rolling, and I'll fix this as we go. Just for instance, we've got about between 10 and 15 people here. I'm going to jump in, and we've had more technical problems than we expected tonight, but we're going to go ahead and start. I shouldn't be the one hosting, so I'm actually going to bring Andrew from across the room to get things going. We've both had technical problems tonight for whatever reason, unexpectedly. So Andrew's going to go ahead and jump on in now.
Okay, and what am I supposed to say? Yeah, not being prepared to speak about this kind of throws me for a loop. But welcome everybody to the first edition of one of my bright ideas that has actually worked out a little bit. We're gonna try to do this every few weeks, but this is the first ever North Florida AMS NWA Chapter Professional Development Series. Ken started off as our guest, and we sort of developed this into a panel, but that's fine. That's great. More opinions is always great, in my opinion, right? So, without further ado, I want to thank Janice for joining, Frank for joining, Ashley and James for joining in too. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. And I guess on that note, Ken, please make me stop talking.
So let me see. Let me share this screen share.
If this will work. Can you plug those speakers in over here?
Plug the speakers into that on the YouTube account. It's going to be lagged, but... You want to say Janice?
Yeah, it's way behind.
Can you see my slide?
Plug this. Can you plug the speakers into here?
I'm not getting any output. Hey Ken, go ahead and talk for us.
1, 2, 3. Hello there, Seminoles.
All right.
We're good to go.
Okay, can you guys see my first slide?
We cannot. We're still seeing my webcam. You are doing a screen share right now. Go to the document slide. Or there should be a document option.
Yeah, that's where I just was.
All right, we're back to your webcam. Do a screen share and then bring up the document.
That is massively far behind.
Yeah. This is what I did last night right here, but let's try this one. Hold on. Does that work? Yes?
We're back to our webcam.
Oh, damn.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, yes? Was that
Yes.
good?
Yes.
Okay, we good?
We are good.
Okay, and you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Hey, listen, well, thanks for the invitation. It's really an honor and a privilege to be a part of this, and I want you guys to make sure that you know that this is a two-way street. So stop me at any time. Right now, I'm just looking at the full slide, so if you guys got questions, feel free to stop me. I'll try to answer some of the questions I've gotten in advance of the talk. And I hope at the end of this period, let you know a lot more about not just the private sector, but also about what our operations in our field. I still feel especially proud to be an adopted Seminole. You know, the spirit of Seminole is creative and innovative, and certainly that says a lot about the private sector. There's lots of opportunities. It said without, and I'm on slide 2. Can you see this U.S. News and World Report quote?
Yes.
Okay, good. So again, lots of opportunities. Of course, lots of challenges, as we all know. Our business is full of people, and of course, this was I stole this from your web page. This is a good picture of you guys, and Again, congratulations on your accomplishments. It's all about people. I got this. This picture was from our recent meeting. Actually, we were pretty tame. I was there drinking iced tea, but there was a crowd here. There was some people there in the back who actually got in trouble, I think, with the local police. They had a little bit too much to drink. I won't mention names, but I think you'll see who I'm talking about. So anyway, it was a fun game and enjoyed it. So
that was Super Bowl.
Yeah, what Super Bowl? It was good. Let's not talk. It was too depressing. So listen, there are lots of choices, and in spite of the fact that I see top-performing students all across the nation, they're still thinking small. There's lots of great jobs in the public sector. The Weather Service is thankfully now hiring, which is great. I hope you all are taking advantage of that. And I encourage you. I've worked with many distinguished NOAA people, and it's a great opportunity. Having been retired from the Air Force, certainly I'm an advocate of the military. It's not for everyone, but there are lots of job opportunities. The options are shrinking because the military is shrinking as anybody picks up the newspaper, but there still are options. And this topic, like others, I'm happy to have more discussion on either tonight or some other time. There's also civilian jobs available. Many of you may not be aware that there are contractors providing some forecast services at various geographic locations around the world. There's also scientists that work with the Department of Defense. Not lots of them, but there are some. There's actually also people that deal with what they call RDMETs. It's actually rocket sondes that the Army fires off. Not a lot of jobs, but again, they're out there. Most of you are familiar with NASA. Clearly, there's a dedicated, distinguished group of scientists, one of which is, of course, our past president, the AMS, Dr. Marshall Shepard, who had a long and distinguished career with NASA. Dr. Uccellini, the director of the Weather Service, served at NASA, and my CEO of my company was a NASA employee for years, so lots of great jobs there. Academic sector, many of you are pretty familiar with this, of course, in the secondary sector. Again, it's there's like this sector, many of us have been in all three. I've been in the military. I teach for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University since 1991 at campuses around the U.S. So I'm not a tenure-track professor, but I understand the value of teaching students. So I think for many of you, this is a good opportunity. Many of you may not be thinking about this, but there's also a huge need for science teachers and the like at secondary and other levels. So many of you may not be thinking that area, but you should consider the opportunity to teach, whether it be at a university level or at a secondary level. Of course, with the secondary level, a PhD is not required. The private sector, it's still a bit misunderstood. What exactly is that? And so I gave some examples here in the slide at the bottom. Many of you, of course, are familiar with the broadcast meteorology, CCMs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Some of you actually should consider getting certified as a CCM because there's lots of things you can do. In fact, it requires a test, and since many of you are used to doing that at school, whether at undergrad or grad level, you should be well prepared. So some of you should consider that. I'll talk about this a little bit later. There's lots of course, forecasting and other jobs, some of which I've mentioned here. We'll talk about a little bit later. There's actually a lot of jobs in, I'll call this consultant, system engineering area. These are working for companies. I'll go into this a little bit more, but you see just a couple of the companies, some of which you may not be aware of. And again, I'll talk about that. Many of you are, I'm certainly aware of this emerging industry in the energy, reinsurance, things like that. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit later, but this is a growing area of the private sector. There's also a part of the private sector that you're probably familiar with, but are really relatively small number. The American Meteorological Society hires some people. UCAR, which actually has an educational component, of course, certainly with many universities, they actually have some opportunities within the private sector that you may not be aware of. And the Weather Museum, like Jill Hassling, who runs down to Texas, there are small weather museums that hire a very small amount of people, but again, they exist. So just from this list here, I hope you can get the sense that there are lots of opportunities, but you see just from this slide, the majority of the jobs of the future really are probably going to be in the private sector. So I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? Otherwise, I'll keep going.
I think we're good on our
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks. I'm going to go through these slides relatively quickly because I'm happy to provide them. I just want to give you a kind of a potpourri of opportunities. Raytheon is a system integrator. They do a lot of things. They work. Many of you may be familiar with AWIPS. That's the brain of the National Weather Service. It's the Automated Weather Interactive Processing System. They're actually the prime contractor. They provide the technical support for the AWIPS NCF, the Network Control Facility, for example. And so these are the kind of candidates. Many of you may see yourself here in some of these pictures. Many of you have these sort of qualifications. This is the kind of things that the private sector does pretty well. This is pretty common, these list of skills here. So if you see yourself having these kind of skills, you're probably a candidate for working in a place like Raytheon. Broadcasting, clearly it's an area where it's a huge impact. The weather industry, weather broadcasting industry is challenging. The good news is for you is that as a young person, they need people like you. They want innovative people. They want people who have recent forecasting experience. They want people who know how to use social media, all of which many of you, I'm sure you and your colleagues have that. So you've got a huge advantage. It does get to be a little bit a problem later in the career, you know, because as you become a senior broadcast meteorologist, just your salary increases, for example, and sometimes they just don't want to pay that. But you guys don't have to worry about that for now, and so broadcast meteorology continues to be an opportunity. It's not for everyone. Clearly, some of the hours are not always conducive for family life, but so is many other jobs, and so there's lots of opportunities. The best part of being a broadcast meteorologist, I think, is the impact you can have on your community. Because you all know that if people aren't sure where to go, they usually call their local TV person to find out what's going on. So this is it's a great job. Again, you see here, again, trusted source of information. You have your local expertise. They say that all politics are local. Well, so is weather, and so is going to be climate change probably. So again, you guys have opportunities here which to impact many others don't. Of course, one of the parts of a broadcast meteorologist and some other jobs is going out and seeing the public, going to schools. Again, you see, if any of you are speaking Spanish or other international language, it's a huge advantage. John Morales is a kingpin down in Miami because of his not only his expertise, but also his ability to speak foreign languages. So you all ought to consider, if you don't already and haven't already taken a foreign language or more than one language, we should get like the rest of the world is. Most people outside the U.S. are multilingual, and so I'd encourage you to get a second language. So the next couple of slides talks about the kind of different opportunities. Many of you are probably aware wind power is becoming a big deal. People are looking for alternative energy solutions. Wind is not about just turbines, right? But there's also people who use statistics, being able to develop algorithms to use the effect of winds to be able to turn the turbines, for example. There are lots of people behind the scenes working to basically understand how this renewable energy could be used in transmission, electrical power transmission, utilities. It's a big money saver, so there's a big demand. Again, you see the kind of things they can do. It's a person like the kind of skills that many of you already have, right? You're trying to solve and use your innovative ways to make something happen. You can see this is the kind of opportunities that you can make a huge difference. They've shown an example, for example, that if the weather industry could forecast the weather just 1 degree Celsius better, it would save millions of dollars for industry. So it could be somebody like you could do that. So again, these are kind of the activities besides the ones you may have already thought of. They need people actually to go out and actually take site projects and take measurements, to use their modeling. They use this information in numerical weather models to better forecasts and applications. This is both on the land, of course, for oil platforms, others, because as you might imagine, shipping, transportation, oil platforms are all affected by weather, winds, ocean currents. All of this, again, is something that you can do. And clean energy, as you know, is becoming a big deal. One of those companies that's doing a lot of clean energy is Iberdrola Renewables. This picture is supposed to typify the fact that using radar meteorology, numerical weather models, site data, being able to integrate that in a cohesive picture. It's people like you who are here there at FSU, I think, are the kind of people they want, people that can use their brain. And that really epitomizes, I think, the private sector. This is an example of something that some of you may know. Joel Gratz out in Colorado, he developed actually this product. This slide typifies the sort of innovativeness. If there's something that currently is not being done, that means that there's a demand for it. And so what Joel did was develop this tool which basically, what kind of damage would occur from a hurricane. So basically developing, using his GIS skills, visualizations, statistics, mathematics, and being able to put this together. Maybe not be a big money maker, but I can tell you it's a huge hit with many parts of our industry. So again, why should you go and work in the private sector? The biggest selling point I've found is that there's so much growth. Typically in the government, you don't have a lot of flexibility, but in the private sector, you do. You do get paid for it too, by the way. Typically, the pay is a lot better. You do have to perform, of course. There's less job security than the government, but you do have a lot of long-term benefits. And again, the idea that what I've seen in my experience is that there are a lot of people in our field who are willing to make you better and help you mentor you. AccuWeather, of course, is pretty much a household name. I think many of you are certainly aware of that. Certainly, they're a provider using forecasting. Of course, they're in the .com. Many of you, of course, are well aware that .coms and the electronic media is becoming a huge value added for many companies. AccuWeather, as many of you know, does a lot of things, but there's also sort of the management and business administration, client supports. They need people who can actually forecast the weather, but also can use their skills to talk to people, sales, to be able to produce better products and understand better. AccuWeather is all across the nation, and like weather, they've got a pretty big impact. Speaking of national, Weather Service International, which is part of the weather company, the new weather company, is based in Massachusetts, but they've got offices around the world. This is becoming more the norm. Of course, weather, as we know, is pretty global. So you see the kind of the forecast services, and WSI has lots of opportunities. They do work in energy, in lightning. You see typified by the picture on the upper right. They do work in insurance, and so they've got forecast opportunities. There are people that actually do interact with media. They've got technical jobs. I know someone who works for WSI, a young person who graduated from the University of Oklahoma, travels the world installing various weather systems. Not for everyone, maybe, but boy, what a great job right out of college. You get a chance to travel, get a chance to use your technical skills, use your ability to work with others. It's a great opportunity, and WSI typifies that. Analytical skills are a huge area of growth, I think, in this country. That is, when I say analytics, meaning integrating a variety of sources of weather information into a more cohesive picture. This is a small company here in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. Again, you see, this team of meteorologists developing and working with this database to basically provide this weather information, this proprietary information. So how do they do that? They take the data that you and I are pretty familiar with, I think. Basically, take the data that's generally freely available from NOAA. Basically, they take it, they connect it with numerical weather models that either they've developed or actually someone that actually has developed outside there, and they turn it into what they call intelligence. Basically, it's tailoring for a specific customer so that customer can actually do something with it, make decisions, usually make money or save lives. So it's pretty important. So you see here this picture of this is not a 9-to-5 sort of day-to-day National Weather Service type job. You can just see from this picture it's a very different kind of job. For some people, it's an exciting new opportunity, and there's lots of opportunities here, and at every one of these steps, again, which is I think part of the big possibilities. So again, they don't hire a lot of people, and the problem I hear all the time from many people is, how do I find about this? It's really hard, actually. There is no usajobs.gov, so I've included wherever I can their website. So anybody who's listening or there, again, I'm happy to provide these slides. But you can see, you can go to their website and start looking to see maybe this is a good match for me. I know there's a retired Air Force guy who's high up in the company. So if anybody's interested, please let me know. Of course, most people are familiar with NCAR and UCAR, but I put this on there because there is a kind of an additional component that, you know, for some people this may be a great springboard to a great career. They have undergraduate summer internships. They're awesome. Everybody that I've talked to just gets so much out of this. Again, not just weather, but they integrate their skills both in computer science and mathematics and integrate them together. They've got summer programs in engineering. The mentors are some of the best in the world. We're talking the top scientists in the world. If you like instrumentation, this is a great job, fantastic job. They've got graduate fellowship. They've got postdoc. Again, for those people who got their PhD, it's an amazing opportunity in by the way, a wonderful location called Boulder, Colorado. So again, I think you should consider that. They've got workshops. Again, they've got these visitor exchanges when you get to that level. So again, something to consider. I happen to be the chair of an advisory panel to Comet, which is one of the world's leading providers on meteorological education and training in Boulder. They're part of UCAR, and it's a great place to work. So if you want to talk more, I'm happy to do that. This is the company I work at called Earth Resources Technology, or ERT. We're basically, our company's divided into 3 parts. Science, which is the part that I own. Again, we do a lot of work, which I'll talk about in the next couple slides. Engineering, we provide engineering support to NASA and NOAA and U.S. Geological Service. And then finally, our last part is environmental services, which is environmental cleanup, basically cleaning things that blow up. You know, we do a lot of work with the Army and the Air Force, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's pretty interesting stuff. These are our main customers. Again, the Landsat mission, that's the mission that takes pictures over the last 45 years or so. It's a NASA USGS partnership. They basically take pictures of land surface change, vegetation, etc. around the world. They archive it in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That was, by the way, because of a South Dakota congressman, not really that surprising. Again, you see the work we do with the Corps of Engineers, with NASA. So we've got work across the U.S., which is a great opportunity. Most of our work was with NOAA, shown on this slide. Again, I work with both the National Weather Service and NESDIS. We do have some work with the National Ocean Service. We actually go out on some of their ships taking measurements. It's really pretty cool. Speaking of water, there's a lot of jobs in the marine sector. Many of you may not actually have been thinking about this, but again, the same fluid we call the atmosphere is the same sort of forecasting challenge as you go offshore. And so these are the kind of things that you might think about. I don't know about you, but I would love to be able to provide forecasts for yachts and cruise lines, right? In fact, I was a guest speaker on Royal Caribbean doing weather stuff, so it's pretty interesting. So there are niche areas in many of these sort of small companies or corporate entities. It's very challenging to find out about the job, but if you're open to that, again, you may want to consider working in the marine sector. It's actually very cool. Again, the 70% of Earth covered by water. That means there's lots of job opportunities for people who are interested in maybe traveling, using your marine skills. The National Weather Service has the Hydrometeorological Prediction Center, or HPC, that needs forecasters, forecasting. They've got forecast openings in the Ocean Prediction Center as part of NCEP, the National Centers for Environmental Prediction, headquartered in Maryland, where I am. So again, there are job opportunities in the marine sector, especially at places like this. These companies right here actually hire people. Again, it's not huge numbers, but they do hire people. So again, I put this on the slide here to maybe hopefully give you some better insight about who's hiring in this area. Any questions from anyone? Because otherwise I'll just keep going. But I want to stop and maybe see if anyone has any particular questions.
Hi, Ken. It's Raquel.
Yeah. Hey. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, there I am. Sorry, I'm not quite dressed up. But my question is, a lot of these companies, you know, they have their meteorology forecasters within the company, yet the ones who are running the company, are they also meteorologists, or are they just business?
Most are not meteorologists, so I don't know if it's a double-edged sword, right? So many of them are either, you know, entrepreneurs or basically just businessmen. They've grown up in a variety of fields, and they've decided either individually or collectively to start a company. So some of these people have sort of a science bent, while others don't. That can be good and bad. I think if they're smart, like many are, they surround themselves with high-quality people. So here's the deal. So basically, with companies like this, it's always a challenge of what do you have to offer. So what I would recommend is, if you're interested in these kind of companies, that you find out more about them, of course, online. They usually have some way to contact them, and then if it's possible to start reaching out to people that maybe work with them. For example, there are NOAA works with the UK Met Office. If it's possible to find out people who work in this area. For example, since we're talking the marine sector, you might imagine someone at the Ocean Prediction Center or maybe the Hydrometeorological Prediction Center at NOAA would work with agencies like this. So I would try to reach out to people at NOAA, for example, someone that maybe you might know, or maybe someone who knows someone like that, to be able to make that contact for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Keep going?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Vizsla is a big company. Again, many of you heard of them. They have a huge influence. They're out of the Netherlands, but of course they have a worldwide reach. Again, observation and measurements. That's their sort of core competency. And they have lightning sensors aboard some of our major satellites. So again, really international. So if you like working internationally, Vizsla is the kind of company that you want to target, because again, they're really pretty entrenched in both the U.S. and abroad. They do lots of interesting things in research and development. And so if you're a researcher, instead of just staying at a college or university, this is probably the great kind of job for you. So this is an area you might want to explore. Raytheon, I mentioned earlier, again, there's a lot of work in satellites. Most of the NESDIS budget is focused on satellites, and so there's work to understand how satellite data is acquired. So you see some of these inset pictures, for example. You see there's people actually working at the North and South Pole, for example, doing engineering work. There's people doing work on the ground stations. The people that I work with oftentimes are working with people who work on NESDIS NOAA ground stations. And so again, in the satellite business, if you look at where the money is, most of the money is going towards support for weather satellites, whether it's developing algorithms to make better use of it, or basically to think about the scientific value of launching a satellite for an organization like NASA, for example. So really interesting work. You can either be involved in the operational component of this business, the scientific part with either in NOAA, for example, or NASA, or in the private sector, or you can maybe be in the marketing component. I don't know if anybody know Bob Barron, but he started Barron Services down in Huntsville. He's got a very successful business. Started out trying to protect people with weather radars, which he still does today. But he's also expanded out to do a bit more in the modeling, data processing area. Of course, display integration is also one of his core capabilities that he has. And so his love for severe storms and weather started out as a broadcast meteorologist and turned into his own company. In fact, he tried to hire me at one point, and if it wasn't for my wife wanting to stay in Virginia, I might be working there now, because I really think a lot of it. Great company, really great place to work, and good guy, by the way. Some of you may be more have a chemistry bent, and there's a company, for example, called Lycor that develops these analyzers. Here's an area where you get to combine science with sales. Some of you may be more inclined to be a bit more of a sales kind of person. So if you can combine your scientific expertise and credibility with an ability to develop or sell products, this is the kind of company for you, for example. So it's really not a huge company, but there are jobs. And so again, this just shows you the diversity of the private sector. Who doesn't like trying to get the weather, doing kind of a broadcast job? This is Mike Bettis here in the Goodyear blimp. This is him out at NASCAR. I mean, that's cool right there, right? So obviously him doing some interview. This is at that time the state emergency manager for Florida. And of course, the Mike here up close and personal with a tornado. But obviously, the Weather Channel is a great opportunity for many people. Energy trading, it's a big deal, huge deal here. Again, this is one of the areas where if you want to make a difference or could make a difference, this is where you want to go, because there are lots of interest in the kind of stuff that we deal with: temperature, precipitation, hurricanes. I mean, talking about severe weather, it's a huge impact on commodities. That's the stuff that you and I actually eat or drink or consume. You see from the slide here on the left, you see the differences between the temperature anomalies actually for periods of time. You see on the right here what this is showing here is the demand and what. So if you look at the difference in the center part of the slide between the red line and the blue line, that's called dollars. It's called money. So if you could predict and forecast the fact that if the energy consumption was going to be more or less than average, it's a huge economic outcome. So that's what this box here I just pulled up shows, basically, that as the gas price changes, if you can predict that for your employer or if you're a consultant, there are huge benefits. So again, your knowledge of statistics, of modeling, of prediction of future events, temperature, precipitation, other natural phenomena. I mean, again, it's a huge moneymaker. So again, not for the weak at heart, but also has huge dividends. This again just shows an example how natural gas, as many of you might expect, it's tracked that closely. If you look at the y-axis on the far left, all those differences in those numbers all mean dollars. So if you could predict, for example, the difference between 13 and 14 units on the far left, that means millions of dollars for companies around the United States. So it's a big deal. So that's why they're tracking this at a very high fidelity. They do this every day. So here's some kind of some sense of summary of the kind of things, good and bad, about working in the commodity industry. You see, I won't read all of them, but again, lots of pluses and then lots of challenging things, right? So it depends on the kind of person, depends on what kind of jobs you like. If you like sort of a steady 9-to-5 job, this is probably not the kind of job that you want. But if you want lots of opportunities for innovation, you want to do some really interesting things, you want to never know almost from day to day maybe what you're doing, you want lots of challenges, this is a great job for you. Again, to continue the theme of weather risk, I'm mentioning this a lot because there's a lot of things that are going on. Lots of companies, probably many of you have never heard of this particular company called Nephila. You see on the right hand, just to give you a sense of what would you do if you went to work for this company, what's a typical day, and you kind of get a sense of the kind of diversity, and it's very, very different, right? Talking about market news, looking at renewable energies, again, it's a huge area of learning, of opportunity. So again, you see the kind of skills in the lower left that are needed. The first one being pretty typical, but again, especially that last one, the financial stuff, which again, a lot of us have some experience, but probably not enough. Again, this is an area where I think if this is of interest area, this is a great market for you. Here's an example of some things the same company, again, Snowfall. You might be asking, what the heck it is they do? This gives you, I hope, an example of what they do, for example, in Snowfall, where you see here where, again, you have an insurance product for a particular company, in this case, a ski resort. So, to offset when you have a great season, like probably they had this year, right? So, again, you're paying a premium for the coverage, but they're still making money because they had good results. On the other hand, when they have a bad year, there's not much snow, then you're hedging your bets, and the fact that they pay that insurance policy premium to a company through like Nephila. Again, so imagine if you're a forecaster and you're predicting the future state of skiing over the western U.S., for example. Again, you can make a lot of money being able to predict that. And really, more importantly, the money is the satisfaction knowing that you're helping people experience a greater quality of life. So again, this is a great opportunity. I wanted to, one of the things that came up as I thought I was putting together a presentation is, well, what can you do right now? Well, there's people doing stuff right now at school, so you don't have to wait until you graduate. There's a company that was created at St. Louis University with a private sector firm. This was done by students and faculty at that school. It's called Quantum Weather. And you see the kind of things that this is not rocket science per se. You guys can do this in some way at FSU, right? You guys can do this kind of stuff. You don't have to wait till you graduate. This may be a great project, for example. And this is what they do, basically. They take meteorological data, they combine it with other information to be able to put, basically to answer a basic question: where are people most at risk from weather? And you see, for example, in the graphic in the lower left and the graphic in the upper right, again, specific areas targeted by severe weather. And this quote you see in red at the bottom was actually from a state customer. So again, you know, this is the kind of thing that you can do. You don't have to wait for the next, you know, till you graduate and what are you going to do. This is the kind of stuff that you can think about. Maybe there's something that in the state of Florida, for example, that there's a real need for a partnership between, for example, FSU and a private sector firm. The last part, sorry, not the least part of the private sector, is CCM. It's a Certified Consulting Meteorologist. It is, again, a niche area. Many people don't work here full-time, although you could, because, again, this is an area where it depends on your particular expertise. So basically, you see here, again, it's usually related to litigation, but doesn't have to be. Again, they want to get the truth. They basically analyze particular cases. They provide, you know, testimony. They provide their expert opinion. I get a question from someone that was talking about they want to provide information to sporting events. They wondered if they needed a CCM. Well, it depends, actually. So I don't know. I'm looking here at my latest article from WeatherWise. And those of you who get WeatherWise, which is a great magazine, the January-February, on page 23, it says, "Beyond rain delays, weather's role in America's favorite pastime." This article was dedicated to the impact of weather on baseball. So clearly there's niche areas where Major League Baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse, all of them, as you might imagine, depend on weather. Now many of them have some sort of I'll call dedicated service. It may be through a private sector firm. So that could be you. And so again, if sports is your thing, then what I would do is reach out to your local communities and talk to people who put on sporting events, etc., and see if they need a meteorologist or someone to provide tailored weather information. You know, it could be an opportunity. So I think it's not a huge area, but there's certainly interest. I know several colleagues who provide on a part-time basis, you know, meteorological information for various sporting events. So I think it's definitely something that you should consider. CCMs use data, which is pretty much what we're pretty used to, right? Litigation, that's getting criminal and civil. Investigations, these are insurance companies. They're either federal sector looking at environmental impacts. They're individuals trying to solve cases, for example. Traffic accidents where weather was a factor, maybe it would have been sunlight, nighttime, glare, dust, heavy rain, you name it, come into play. So this is kind of stuff they get involved with, right? They look at all these kind of things that may be caused by weather, whether it's injury or whether it's damage. Maybe a construction site had a big problem, so they want to know what's it due to weather, and you can get to the bottom of that. There's criminal cases that you've probably heard of before. All these had weather involved in one form or another, whether it was humidity or visibility or wind or rain. All of these had to be decided using weather information and certified consulting meteorologists. So to be a CCM, that I just want to say, so it does take a test. It's a credential that's given by the American Meteorological Society. So all you need to do is you apply, you get letters of reference, and then you basically take a test, and then at the annual meeting they have these oral interviews. So actually, it's for those of you, for example, if you already have your master's degree, then you'll probably actually do well, because it's the same thing that you've learned in school, right? They're basically looking for you to understand meteorological knowledge. If you have an undergrad, you may want to get a little bit more experience before getting your CCM. But certainly if you have a master's degree and certainly a PhD, if that's something that you want to do, you have all that you need. If you get, especially if you have a little bit of experience in our field, then a CCM would be a great opportunity. So these are some opportunities here. We've got at the bottom of the AMS Private Sector Mentor Program, which you can see the URL. The speed mentoring, those of you, some of you have been a part of that at the NWA. We're going to have another one, I'm sure, in at their next meeting in Salt Lake City. Mentoring forum is something that I'm working with the NWA, and what that'll be is it's going to be a number of mentors with their bio, and then they're going to answer a series of questions about what got them in our field, and then these are going to be made available to NWA members so that people like you, for example, if you're interested in a person's background or history or journey and you want to find out more, you don't have to wait to go to the annual meeting. You don't have to wait to go to the specialty meeting. This way you can talk to not just one person, all the mentors, and find out what it is they do, how they got there, any advice they may have. This way, it jumpstarts your thinking on the possibilities of what you'd like to do for your career. So one thing I thought before I close here in a bit is, I'm a practical person. So what is it? If I could kind of crystallize, what is it to succeed? And this is, by the way, is not just the private sector, but in any job. First of all, excellence. I was actually watching TV today, and President Obama was announcing his a program to help young black males, and I didn't vote for him, nor do I agree with everything he said, but I agree with something that President Obama said today. He said the first thing they should do is be excellent, and that is absolutely right. So that's my advice to you is, whether you're a student or whether you're working at McDonald's, you should do whatever it is you're doing as well as you can. Persistence. I've been accused of being very persistent oftentimes. When I was in the Air Force and I ran a Weather Explorer post, I had a group of students that we actually took trips every year throughout the year. And one year I want to go from Nebraska to Atlanta, Georgia, of course, where the Weather Channel is. And so I knew Ray Ban, who, no relation to sunglasses, by the way, but he was the vice president here at the Weather Channel. And so I asked him if he could help us get there, if he just would send a check for $5,000. And I called him, and emailed him, and finally he let me talk to somebody else. And finally he got tired of me calling and called me back. And he was kind of really pissed at me. He was like, "What do you want?" And I said, "Ray, you know what I want? I want $5,000 to bring a group of Weather Explorer students." And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "You know what? I'm going to write you that check. And you are really persistent, but don't give that up." So you have to, have to be persistent, but not harassment, I guess. Maybe you go just short of harassing them. So I did get the check from him. We went down to Atlanta. We had a great time. Went to Stone Mountain. Went to Atlanta Braves game. Got to see Coca-Cola. Of course, we had teenagers, so we went shopping. So it was good. It was a great trip. So persistence is good. Ability to work with others. Listen, any success I've had is not my own. I am painfully aware of that. So if you think that you're going to be successful on your own, you're just wrong. I'm not saying you need to like everyone, but what I'm saying is that you need to kind of empathize with people. You need to see their viewpoint, try to get along, try to see the best in people, and then take what you've learned. You may not be a good speaker, so if you see someone who speaks well, you should try to find out how they do that and maybe make it your own. Don't be them, but take the best from others and try to make it your own. Do it your own way, as I would say. Innovation. Clearly that's a big area. So I thought maybe I'd actually show you an example. And a talk is cheap, as they say. So one thing our company does, we've developed a product with the National Weather Service to better detect tsunamis. Of course, many of you remember the tsunami that struck Japan. So I've got, see if this thing works. I've got a, I'm not gonna, it's its own narration. I'm gonna play this video about a tsunami, and I'm gonna let you see the integration of GIS, of statistics, of science. I'm gonna let you judge for yourself. So here goes.
If you've got your headphones in, take them out again. We can't hear the music.
So you see, I mean, from that that's what I'm talking about. I mean, that's when I talk innovation. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So it's integration of using graphically, being able to graphically show our point. Our meteorology field is a great example of being able to do that, and there's a huge need for people who can take complex information and show it in a way just as I just shown, hopefully, which makes sense. I can guarantee you when we show that, people go, wow. They go, yeah, I get it. I see why it's so important. So decision making, you know, at some point, anybody, to include the government, they need to make a decision. They need people who are decisive with the information that's required, and that's a skill that oftentimes people don't have. This is number 5 is just absolutely essential in any part of our field, to include the private sector. At some point, you got to get things done, and so if you're a researcher or a scientist, you still have a deliverable. You got to get things done, and so this is something that is something that's a high priority for me. Networking. You're doing that tonight, of course. The opportunity to connect. You do that, and many of you at the AMS annual meeting. Clearly, an important component. I need not tell you, but again, it becomes even more important later in your career. Balance. This is one I struggle with. My balance. The pastor at the church I had attended, he always said he told me I should build margin in my life. And I said, you're right. I just don't have time to do that. So I understood what he was saying, but it's hard to do that. So being able to relax, being able to get away from the stresses. So my advice here for many of you is that do stuff outside of your schoolwork that has nothing to do with meteorology. Something, whether it's sports, whether it's singing or playing a guitar, or just something that sort of gets you out of the mold here, so to speak. Writing. I got to tell you, this is a huge plus. The last several days, I have been writing a lot. A proposal in the private sector. In many endeavors, you have to write proposals to get new work. So believe me, it's an art. So being able to write well is an essential component, especially in the private sector, because oftentimes you have to write to get your next business opportunity. And finally, public speaking, and certainly it's an example of this, I guess, because clearly all of us need to do it better. And the only way that I found to get better in most things is to keep practicing. So that's why part of the reason why I'm here tonight. So President Kennedy was inspiring in a lot of ways. This is something that I took a quote, especially this second sentence. This is an important component in the private sector. There are jobs that don't currently exist. You people are the ones that have a lot of great ideas and can create the jobs of the future. There are a number of jobs that don't exist right now that will exist, I hope, while you're working. And there are jobs that need to be done that aren't being done that need to be created by people like you. There's also jobs that are currently exist that may go away while you're working. So again, keeping your mind and the opportunities where you have. So just some final thoughts. Again, excellence in everything you do. That's a huge advantage. So my advice is, if you're at school, kick ass in school. Do well in school. Okay, do whatever it is you're doing now. Do it well, because people notice. Don't do things you don't like doing. Okay. When I say be passionate, do it as best you can. I think for most weather people, that's easy, because most people really do it. They really have a passion for what they do. But for whatever it is you're doing, do it well and do it with all your heart. Long-term relationships are really, really important. You're starting them now, of course. Continue to do that, because I said earlier, any success you will have will involve others. And finally, and certainly not leastly, getting involved. Obviously, you're involved in the student chapter, which is a fantastic opportunity. Many of you were at the annual meeting, so I'd encourage you to continue to do that, and to include other societies that are not related to weather, whether it's the Rotary Club or something like that. Again, things like that, which you think you can do well. This is a quote I thought maybe would be appropriate. That is, again, any success is not due to me individually. It's people working with me, and more than one person, especially two, is even better. So that's all that I have. This is my contact information. I would welcome any additional feedback or questions.
All right, Raquel's got another question. Come on over.
Okay. No, there's not a lot of graduating seniors in the room right now. There's several of us. Several of us, though. Okay, I'll just get in the shot. Hello.
Hey.
So once we graduate, then when we start looking for jobs and we don't find a job right away, what should we be doing with in the meantime, in other words?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's frustrating for a lot of people, I think, especially what I hear is when people come to the annual meeting. That's why your hair is fine, by the way.
I see myself, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, your hair undone is probably better than my hair done, so don't worry about it. Yeah, it's frustrating. So I know a lot of people get frustrated with that because here's the problem. Many of you saw John Knox's report. He's down at University of Georgia. He said there were graduating way more meteorologists than there are jobs. That's probably true. Here's the good news, though, that the jobs that are going to be hired are in the private sector. The challenge is, maybe Raquel, we talk or not, but is finding those jobs. Where are they? So back to your question. Your question is a good one. I would say I mentioned persistent. Don't give up in your dreams, okay? Stay connected to people that are in the room. Those people who are working. Your best job opportunity is through people that know you and know your skills, know your strengths. They know who you are and what you can do. So the people that you know right now, do not stay in touch, stay engaged, be involved. Don't give up. Follow stay in the society, the AMS, NWA. Stay connected. Look for opportunities. Talk to people, whether it's in your community or people that you normally come in contact with. Tell them what you want to do. If FSU, for example, they have an alumni club. If you're graduating and you don't have a job, you know what I would do? I would go to the FSU alumni and say, listen, bub, I'm a Seminole. Can you help me find a job? I mean, I know that, and Ashley will, probably agree with me with the Hokies. I mean, I've never seen a college that's so, like, crazy tight. I mean, if you say Hokie, go, yeah, Hokie, everybody's like, yeah. I mean, so FSU is probably the same way, right? So what I would do is take advantage or leverage all the contacts you have to include your school alumni network. So that's what I would do. Now, they may not get you a weather job. The other thing I would say is, I had a lot of jobs in the Air Force. Not all of them I asked for. So I would leave yourself open to something may not be exactly what you want, but maybe it's something a little bit over here, right? In the military, they say you should have a plan. When we go to war, we have a plan, but then they throw the plan out when you go to war. So you may have a plan to go X, but then there's Y or Z or A or B. So don't close the doors on things. As I recall, you speak a foreign language, right? Don't you?
Well, I'm still working on it. But
Okay, all right. So I'm trying to remember. We had this conversation. I know you had some interesting interests. So I think that you should continue to do those. Stay connected to your colleagues. It's going to be. I wish I had a silver bullet, because I know a lot of students. It gets frustrating sometimes when they don't land the right job at the right time. And I wish I could give everybody a job, but there are jobs out there. But it's just sometimes they're not. You don't get them right away. I remember Dr. Jack Hayes. He used to be he was currently the past director of the National Weather Service. He was working the Weather Service and he was up for the director's job. He didn't get it. Man is well qualified. I know he was disappointed. He went over to the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization. You know what his next job was? It was a job that he really wanted, the director of the National Weather Service. So there are lots of people, for lots of reasons, don't get exactly what they want, exactly when they think they need it. But as a mentor used to tell me a long time ago, if you're meant to get a job, you'll get it. It just might not be in the right time that you want it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We've got one more question here. We've also got a Twitter question as well. But I want to make sure that our three panelists, I guess four, I don't know where James went, but I want to make sure that you guys are free and willing to ask questions as well as answer them. But I'm going to bring in Kirsten now. She has a question from here in the chapter.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I saw you had Disney listed in one of the companies. Does that mean that the Walt Disney World Company hires meteorologists, or?
Yeah, actually, there are companies. So let me give you a different example. For example, Del Monte Corporation. They make a lot of canned food, right? So they hire meteorologists. Not a lot, but they hire meteorologists. Well, why would they? Of course, weather impacts food. We kind of know that, right? I met a guy at in Atlanta, a friend of mine who had lost track of. He's working for Mars Candy. Why they need meteorologists? Because it's chocolate, right? So chocolate is weather sensitive. So Disney, of course, needs meteorologists to basically ensure that they know what's going on weather-wise. So it's not big. It's not big in numbers. They don't hire a staff of meteorologists, but they do have people that provide weather support. So absolutely, I don't happen to know anybody, by the way. I really don't. But if it's your dream to work in that industry and maybe do weather too, then I don't know what kind of person you are. Especially, but you're in the same state. Find out who it is that you need to talk to about it at Disney, and ask them. And if let's say they say, well, I don't know. I don't know if we need meteorologists. You know what you do? You tell them you come prepared with all the reasons why they need someone like you to provide weather support. What is it you can do for them? Tell them how much money you could save them by providing accurate forecasts of lightning, thunderstorms. Clearly, that's a big deal, right? They don't want anybody to get hurt. Who would argue with that? It's like Girl Scout cookies, right? I mean, no one wants to get hurt by lightning. So if you were able to not necessarily produce a lightning product on your own, but basically take information from a company, maybe we have access to lightning data. For example, I'm just this is not a proposal, but I mean that's a real problem, right? They don't want people to get struck by lightning. So maybe they already have a provider doing that. Or maybe you could join that team of people, or maybe replace someone. So, like I said, the sky's the proverbial limit. So Disney and many other companies, they don't have big numbers of meteorologists, but they certainly need people like meteorology, just like Del Monte Corporation, just like Dominion Virginia Power, who's in my area of the world. They have meteorologists because, of course, if they can buy energy cheaply, they make a lot of money. If they knew next winter that it's going to be much colder than normal, they're going to buy more power and store it and buy it cheaply before the price goes up before next winter if it's colder, let's say. So there's a lot of money to be made. So just like the recreational industry, our population here is growing. So that means there's more people that are fishing, recreational boaters, maritime interests, skiers, people going to Disney World and amusement parks. I mean, so that means that the demand is even better for people who can have the skills that meteorologists have and apply it in a way that's meaningful. I think the biggest challenge would be is, if I were Disney World, what would I want from a meteorologist? What kind of products and services? We talked about a few earlier. Think about it from their perspective. We had T. Boone Pickens, who's an oil and gas billionaire, at our last meeting in Austin. And he said something convicting. He said that I think I know more about your industry than you know about mine. So oftentimes the challenge is we need to have a better understanding of who it is we're serving before we actually serve them. So I give you a little bit more maybe to ask for, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what the possibilities are.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, sure, you're welcome.
We've got a Twitter question now. Our secretary is going to bring it in here now. This is Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Ken. Sorry I didn't get to meet you in person at the conference. I was the member of the board that couldn't make it.
After hearing my talk, are you still sorry you didn't get a chance to meet me?
Yes, very.
Okay.
Much more now, actually. Craig on Twitter asks, are Facebook, Twitter, etc., social media good sources of networking for job hunting in meteorology?
Yeah, well, so people of my age aren't probably using, the people that are hiring probably are not as big social media consumers, but the people that are, it's becoming this, I'll call it tidal tsunami wave. More and more people are engaging that. The one thing that's hugely with social media, it's a big plus for all its negatives, is connecting people. So if I were looking for a job, I would definitely let people know via social media that I'm looking for a job. Not just, I need a job, please give it to me. I mean, what do I have to offer? Of course, Tweet only have 40 characters. But what I'm saying is that I would let all the people that I could know in some, I'll call it professional way, in some way. There's no downside, I think. I really think so. And so you give them, snippets of, why it is they should hire you, or the what value you could provide them, or provide them obviously your contact information, and hopefully their friends will share it with other people. So the beauty of social media, of course, is it can explode, and you could connect with people that otherwise you never would connect with in the traditional media, so to speak.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Can I add something there?
Absolutely.
I would just encourage you to think that some of us who are out there searching for employees, though, might be looking through your social media to learn a little bit more about your character.
Absolutely.
So, if you're saying I want a job, but it's next to your Saturday night party pictures, be careful about what you put on those social media sites and where you're looking for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can switch from the desktop screen to your own webcam. That way we can see you as well.
You sure you want that?
Yeah, it's less awkward.
Okay, so let me see. Which option is it?
You're good.
Oh, we good? That's it?
Yep, that was it. Frank, Ashley, any questions there? Gotta unmute yourself if you do.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry. I did want to add something to Raquel's question about maybe you don't have a job right after.
You may have to
when
turn off your webcam.
Graduated in last May. I was not planning on going to grad school. What?
You may have to take off your webcam. Your audio is coming through a little bit choppy.
What did you say?
Take off your webcam. Your audio is coming through a little bit choppy.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. That sounds better.
There we go.
Okay. So after I graduated last May, I wasn't planning on going to graduate school. So I was out looking for jobs, and I just took anything that I could, whether it be volunteering, forecasting at the National Weather Service, just hanging out with those guys to keep the networking going, or I did forecast for this thing called Foots Forecasting on Facebook. I mean, yes, it's social media, but it's forecasting experience, and it's definitely something that you could add to your resume. I do that every day now still, and you can do it for anywhere in the U.S., and that's a really good company to write down if you guys want any kind of experience or anything. If you want to email me or tweet me about that, I can definitely get you in, because we always need more forecasters.
And what's your Twitter handle?
So, sorry?
What's your Twitter handle?
It's at VTWX-ASH.
All right.
Yeah, so just let me know, because that's definitely a really good company to get involved with, and you meet people from all over the place, and it gives you really good forecasting experience and relating the weather that you forecast to the public. It's really good communication experience too.
All right. While you're talking, go ahead and rep your chapter, all of your social media for the chapter there as well.
Oh, the Twitter handle for the chapter?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good question.
Sorry.
Okay, it's at Blue Ridge AMS NWA.
Go ahead and tell us about your chapter.
Okay. So we're a pretty new chapter. We just started about 3 years ago, and I've been involved with the chapter for 2 years since I'm going to grad school here at Virginia Tech now still. We're kind of still up and coming, but we try to do just about as much as we can, like things like this, collaborating with other local AMS chapters. We just had a really great outreach experience last weekend. We hosted a community event for weathercrafts for kids. So that was really great. So we're really kind of new at this thing, but I think we're getting a good handle on it. So.
All right. Frank, it's your turn. Go ahead and tell us.
All right, you got me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear me twice, actually, so that's pretty cool.
You are the Sue at the Charleston office, correct?
I'm the Science and Operations Officer from the Charleston, South Carolina office of the National Weather Service. And Ken, I guess, briefly touched on this, but there is light at the end of the tunnel for the recent hiring freeze in the Weather Service. As a matter of fact, right now there's about 21 lead forecaster positions that just opened up on the usajobs.gov website. For those of you who aren't on the USA Jobs, I highly recommend you go on there and set up a search, and it can automatically email you as jobs come out that meet your requirement. Now, for people who are just graduating or just trying to get into the Weather Service and are intern jobs, of course, you'll have to wait till the trickle-down process occurs, because they're going to fill the lead forecasters, which are the high-priority positions, first. Then that will open up the journey positions below that. When those get filled, then that'll open up a swath of intern positions down the line. It'll still be a few months till that whole process works through, because, well, we are the government, of course, but there will be more jobs that are opening in that. Another thing that is looking forward, and this is especially true for those students who aren't necessarily yet seniors or maybe going on to graduate school, is that the new Pathways program jobs are going to start opening up with time. And that is kind of a replacement for, I don't know how many of you know the old SCEP system, but it's essentially a way to get a student internship position in the Weather Service. And when those open up, if you're interested in a Weather Service career, I highly suggest you try to apply for them, because it gives you a leg up when trying to get into a permanent position in the Weather Service versus somebody who does not have that same advantage. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get in the Weather Service if you're not part of that program, but it certainly helps out. One of the things I'll bring up that hasn't really been touched on, I know there's a lot of, we're meteorologists and we do a lot of science, but we're really, as an agency, with our things such as Weather Ready Nation, Weather Ready Ambassadors, are going to see an expanding role in social science in the Weather Service. So anything that you can do, maybe take an extra class if you have available, and some social science work, maybe get involved with a project or something along those lines. Of course, stay connected to folks from the AMS and the NWA. You'll see some of that out there. But I think that as new people start trying to get into the Weather Service and new resumes start going forward, things like interest in social science, understanding the communication process, those types of things are going to be very important going forward in the Weather Service, and would help you in those respects. Another big push of ours in the Weather Service is what we call the decision support. We don't cover the same things that these private sector companies do. We're more mainly support for other government agencies. But anything that you can do that shows specialized forecasting is also going to be helpful. So that's pretty much a summary of what I've got to say, so I'll leave it open for any questions.
Yeah, actually, we've got 2 questions here now.
Okay.
Over behind me.
Hi.
Right there.
Hi.
Hi. Well, first of all, you're in Charleston, and I'm actually going to be there in a couple months, and I was there for NWA, so I'm excited to go back there. But I've usually been avoiding the NWS option because it was, for a while, intimidating, because it's the National Weather Service, and there's a lot of skills necessary and required, and a lot of people have been pushing computer programming, and that's not my thing. I wish it was, but I'm struggling through a computer programming class now. But I'm also working on an emergency management certificate here at Florida State on top of my degree, and I have a strong broadcasting background. So is there kind of a mix, or like a need to fill some communication gaps? Like, my dream is to be a warning coordinator. Like, that's something I'm really looking forward to, hopefully, in a career. And I guess another secondary question is about the Pathways program. I used to know how SCEP worked, but now that it's being transitioned into something else, maybe if you could give a couple highlights on that as well.
Sure. Well, we'll start with the first question. Certainly, your direction of getting some additional, I don't know if it would be a degree or definitely different extra classes in emergency managers, is huge. And I'll tell you why. One of the big directions with decision support in the Weather Service is this concept of embedding forecasters within state and large municipality emergency management centers during these high-impact events. We have a significant growing demand. For those of you who saw the news and saw what happened in Atlanta back in late January, I was at a meeting right after the AMS where there was a significant need by the state of Georgia to have folks up, and then when we had the next event the following week, we sent specialists to the EOC up there at the state, and this is the kind of requests that are going to become more and more of us in the Weather Service. And so things like understanding how an EOC works, understanding the different roles in emergency management so that eventually if you get into the Weather Service and you get put in a situation like that, the fact that you're more comfortable and can understand the language and their needs is a very big plus that I see going forward. Communication with our partners is everything. We can be the best forecasters in the world, and if we can't get our other government agencies to understand what we're trying to tell them, and vice versa, if we can't work together, then poor decisions are going to be made, and there's an awful lot of fallout that occurs from things like that. So that is a very good step. And while computer programming is certainly also a good skill, the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. We need both going forward in the Weather Service. In terms of the Pathways program, it should be coming out within the next couple of months, I guess. It's in the human resources process now for these to come out. My understanding is that they're not going to be all that much different than the SCEP program, but they're going to be more tailorable than the SCEP was. Essentially, it's going to allow you to have an opportunity to work part-time for an agency and actually get credit for working for that agency, so that when you get to wanting to get a full-time position within the Weather Service, then that you already have a kind of a credit, and it gives you a leg up in getting those positions. If you have two equally qualified candidates, somebody who was a participant in the Pathways program is more likely to get selected than somebody who isn't. Now, obviously, somebody who's more qualified, there's still going to be that. So if you don't get in the Pathways program, if you still have very strong qualifications, it's not certainly going to kick you out of any kind of possibility of getting hired. But I do suggest to those who have that availability to apply for that program to do so.
All right, thank you.
All right, we've got one last question here in our chapter. This is Tawana, who is also our treasurer in the chapter.
Hi, just a little question about, you were talking about how the NWS is going to integrate social sciences into their operations like every day. How would exactly that occur for in general?
That's the $1 million question, I'll tell you that right now. Frankly, we're an agency that's made up of physical scientists and computer scientists, and so working that in is going to be a process. There's just simply hasn't been a lot of effort hasn't been spent on the training of things like that. We do have some social scientists now that are full-time in the Weather Service. That's only happened in the past few years. There was never that case before. There's more cooperative research being done with Weather Service offices in the area of social science. And there's a screaming need from the field where we realize how much we really need to know in this vicinity. Right? Frankly, forecasters are tired of putting out what's a pretty good forecast and then seeing things on the media where people are stuck in their cars overnight and kids are stuck in school buses because somewhere along the way the communication is breaking down. So we really, it's really going to become, I think, part of the core learning function of folks who work for the Weather Service as we go forward. Obviously, you still need to have the good science. If you concentrate all on social science and your forecast goes to hell, then you're not really doing any much better there. But there's going to have to be a balance, and folks like the warning coordination meteorologists the previous speaker mentioned, they're going to be playing a big role in that, and that's going to have to bubble its way all the way down throughout the NWS chain of command, so to speak. So what exactly it's going to look like, I mean, my vision would be everybody understands what everybody else is saying. But I'm married with children, and I realize that will never happen. So it's going to be a process. And I think that the emphasis that the Weather Service is putting on it is initiatives such as Weather Ready Nation and this Weather Ready Ambassador that we just rolled out are a real strong sign of the direction as an agency that we're going to be going.
Thank you.
All right, Frank, how can we contact you?
Okay, I've got my usual frank.alsheimer@noaa.gov email, which is part of the DNA now. But you can also reach me on my Gmail account, which is FLTwister, FL as in Florida, and then Twister as in, well, Twister, at gmail.com.
All right. Go ahead and, do you have a LinkedIn? That's a question from Raquel.
I do have LinkedIn. I have two, actually. I have a personal LinkedIn, and then I also have a LinkedIn that has W, which is my middle initial, that I have specifically as the National Weather Association Social Media Committee Chair.
Okay.
So either of those will work.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to Janice now and see what she has to say for now.
I've been taking notes. First, I want to tell you all, if you're not familiar, I believe many of you are members of the NWA, but we have a jobs corner which is located on our member portal. You have to be a member to be able to access that, but I've spent a lot of my time the last few days forwarding jobs onto our webmaster to add to that site. We're averaging 2 to 3 jobs per day, and they range from internships to jobs that require 5 years or so experience. So there's quite a variety on there, and if nothing else, it will give you a better feel for all the companies out there that are hiring meteorologists. And I would also encourage you to look at our corporate member list on the NWA website, and just listening to the talks today, there's several companies that we could need to work on adding to that list, but that's another opportunity. Some of the things that were spoken about, I have met forecasters who forecast for the PGA, and hopefully you all know what that is, but if not, it's the Professional Golf Association. They could travel across the country to the tournaments, and especially are watching for lightning and thunderstorms. And to address the question, the woman behind you, I recognize her face, but I forgot her name. No, next to Lauren, to your, yes. Hi. With your speaking abilities and your meteorology experience and your emergency management experience, I think things to keep in mind, there are a lot of local governments, especially in larger cities, that are hiring people with those type of skills to develop plans for their cities. And companies like AccuWeather, and especially the AccuWeather Enterprises business in Wichita, they're working with companies to do specific forecasts to let them know when they need to shut down manufacturing operations. You know, if a tornado is coming, either to tell them, no, you can keep operating, or yes, you need to shut down, because it can cost them millions of dollars if they do. So keep that in mind. With that mix of skills and your speaking abilities, I think you could easily help many different organizations, and ones that probably aren't traditionally hiring meteorologists, and maybe even a PIO, which maybe you've learned from incident management, public information officer, something like that. So there's a lot of companies out there that are forecasting aviation. I worked for Universal Weather and Aviation. We did forecasting for private aviation companies like Pepsi, insurance companies, even a famous star. I never got to do his forecast, but and there are a lot of scientific writers that are needed out there. I've met meteorologists that are working for publication companies, editing and writing documents, and Ken spoke about that a little bit. And for those of you that like the technology side, many of these private sector companies, like Ken mentioned, Barron, they're building radars. A lot of them are building apps or other tools to help their clients. So it really is, there are many opportunities, and I see your generation as being more entrepreneurs. The way that you think and you're marketing yourselves and just the way you represent yourselves, you're really thinking out of the box, and I think we'll see some innovative things coming out of your generation.
All right, go ahead and for a couple of minutes talk about where you're at right now. Well, I'm in the new Norman NWA office. There's not a lot to see quite yet, but I'll give you we're still getting it spun up. I'm currently still the only employee here, working on getting some people hired here to help run our membership and do some office work and accounting work for us. Like Ken was talking, you just never know where your life is going to take you. And when I was your age, I would never guessed I was managing a nonprofit organization. So any job you take, you will learn something from it and be open to where that path takes you. We are in Norman, Oklahoma. We're just across the parking lot from the National Weather Center, and to our south is the new Radar Innovations Lab, which is a really cool building. If you search on that, there's a live webcam from the building that we're in looking at the Radar Innovations Lab. And we have weather news down the hall. Ken mentioned them. They do ship routing forecasts. We have some risk management companies here. We have warning decision technologies that is in all different aspects of meteorology all across the world. And I'm still learning what all the companies here do. Next to us is View Incorporated. They're a hydrology private company. And so the opportunities are available everywhere. But I hope if you all come to Norman, which we're hoping and still working on waiting for a hotel contract for Oklahoma City in 2015. That's the NWA's 40th anniversary. We're hoping to bring the meeting here in 2015. That's our plan. So I'm working on that. All right, and how can we contact you?
Well, my email here at work is exdir@nwas.org, and is it down there on my name at all?
It is not.
It's not. Okay. I'll give you my Gmail account too, because my NWA account gets lots of mail every day. It's bunting.janice, and JANICE @gmail.com. And I am on social media at Janice Bunting for Twitter, but I have to admit these days I've been pretty busy and social media's fallen off a little bit.
All right, I want to give Ken one last chance to butt in and tell us what we don't already know.
All right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, any chance I have to butt in, me being my personality, it's difficult to turn down. So I guess the message that was, complimented by Frank and Janice is there are lots of opportunities in our field. So the best part of being where you guys are right now is that, as Janice said, many of the jobs that you're going to create don't exist right now. And to me, that's exciting. As Janice said, I couldn't have predicted where I am today. So just like you can't predict necessarily where you're going to be. So I would say dream big, really just excel at as many things that you can. My philosophy has always been, yes, there's things that I really don't do well, and I should try to improve, by the way. But I would spend most of my time, and I would recommend you spending most of your time on things that you really, get you up in the morning, get you excited. When you walk down, you say, I really, and try it and give 120%. And even if things don't work out as you planned, it's okay, because actually you may be better off, and you might even do something even better than you could have predicted, right? So You know, as I said, be persistent, be positive. You know, that's the kind of people I want to work with. You know, show off your best. Janice made a great point about social media. It's a great tool, but be careful because your employers may check that, so you've got to watch your Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. But again, surround yourself and get advice from as many people as you can. So this whole thing with mentoring, it's all about trying to find the best possible match for you. And I think the best way to do that is get advice from a wide variety of people that are hopefully that you trust and you value their opinion, and do the same for others. If someone comes up to you and asks for your advice, be honest with them. You know, there's an old saying in the military that said, you know, praise in public, counsel in private. You know, if you think someone is not doing something well, or if they need, you know, some sort of, you know, direct redirection, you know, take them aside, be private, but be constructive. And I think they'll they may not like it even, but they'll be appreciative of it. You know what I mean? So I just that's always been my philosophy. So you know, again, I really appreciate John and Andrew and others who invited me tonight. I hope it's been beneficial. I'm happy to share my presentation, and thanks very much.
Please do. Thank you, Ken. I'm going to toss it over to Andrew now. We're running on an hour and a half now, unfortunately. But I think everyone got a lot of information out of it, and I'm thankful for everyone attending.
Yeah, I did not think this would run anywhere near almost 2 hours from when I planned to start, but I thank everybody that stuck around. I'm sorry I kept you up probably past what time y'all wanted to go to bed after exams today. And thank you everybody for sticking around. Sorry we had some technical issues. The one thing we didn't check last night didn't work. Imagine that, right? But thank you, Ken. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Ashley. All of you. This would not be successful without y'all, and it makes me feel a lot better that everybody showed up. So, great advice. I don't know, anything else to add? Anybody from the crowd want to say anything else?
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody here wants to
Thank you, guys.
send a
Shout out to Virginia.
thank you. And I think that's a good place to stop, right?
Yeah.
All right. So.
All right. Good luck in school.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, see
Thanks
you guys.
all.
Good night.
Enjoy